In the headlines, they called him Young Successful Entrepreneur. Funny. He was the same son who called me every week asking for money. Emergency, he'd say. But the real emergency was mine, waking up before it was too late. I was folding the blue blanket Robert gave me on our 20th anniversary when I heard the words that shattered 30 years of my life. Daniel was on the porch, phone pressed to his ear. His voice cut through the screen like a blade. "It's just a matter of time. The old lady won't last much longer. When she's gone, all this will be ours." My hands froze. The old lady. He was talking about me, his mother, the woman who'd sacrificed everything after Robert died and left me with 3 kids to raise. 30 years saving every penny. Envelopes of coins hidden behind cookbooks. Saying no to pie at church suppers to stretch the dollar. All for Daniel, my youngest, the baby born 3 months after I buried my husband. The one who stayed when Thomas moved to Chicago and Sarah to Atlanta, or so I thought. The blanket slipped from my hands onto the yellow linoleum floor I'd scrubbed thousands of times. 72 years old, widow for 3 decades, and my biggest mistake was confusing presence with love. Outside, Daniel kept talking casually, as if discussing the weather. "She doesn't know anything. Yesterday she transferred another $2,000, said it was for a business emergency. This woman's a gold mine, man." Laughter. He was laughing at me. "I've lived in this white wooden Victorian in Woodhaven on Missouri, population 4,237, for 47 years. The paint's peeling, the porch groans, but every board holds a memory. My children's births, Robert's famous chili, Max's grave in the backyard. Daniel wanted it all, not for love, but for money. 300, 350, prime location. Once she kicks the bucket, we sell fast." I picked up the blanket with trembling hands, pressing it to my chest like armor. Robert used to say I folded things like I was planning the future, every corner perfect. He was right. I believed sacrifice was love, and love would be returned. But as I listened to my son plan my death like a real estate deal on Zillow, I realized my future was built on a beautiful, fatal illusion. Illusions break hardest when they shatter late in life. I sat at the kitchen table, Robert's old Sunday chair, staring at the yellow walls I painted, the handmade curtains, the smiling photos of Daniel on the fridge. Who was that man on the porch? And when exactly had he replaced my son? I didn't sleep that night. I sat in Robert's old green velvet armchair, the lamp throwing long shadows across walls lined with decades of photos. In my lap was a worn brown ledger I kept hidden behind appliance manuals. Inside, years of promises. March 15th, $500 for an apartment deposit. Tax refund will cover it. April 3rd, $200 for car trouble. 2 weeks, Mom. May 22nd, $800 for an MBA. This will change everything. June 10th, $2,000 for an urgent investment. July 28th, $1,500. Just this once, I swear, page after page. My shaky handwriting recorded every broken promise. I grabbed my old Texas Instruments calculator and added it all up. $43,250. $43,000 earned cleaning houses even after retiring from the library. From coupon clipping, soup dinners, and Christmases where I told the kids, "Don't worry about me, spend it on yourselves." I closed the ledger slowly and looked at Robert's smiling photo in that ugly brown sweater I used to hate. 2 months later, a heart attack took him in 15 minutes. No warnings, no goodbyes. "What would you do?" I whispered. "Robert, what would you do?" He'd always been the strong one. I learned strength overnight when he died. But somewhere along the way, strength turned into silence, sacrifice, disappearing. Daniel showed up the next morning like always, no call, just his key in the door, like the house was already his. "Morning, Mom," he said, tossing his keys on the table with that metallic clatter that always grated on me. 34, expensive gel, crisp linen shirt, not exactly broke. I stood at the stove making his favorite chocolate chip pancakes. "You okay?" I asked. "I thought you'd come to dinner last night. I made your favorite roast." "Investor meeting. You know how it is." No, I didn't, but I nodded. "Actually, Mom, I wanted to talk about something. The house." My heart clenched. "Have you ever thought about selling? It's too big for you. Expensive, unsafe stairs. Those senior communities have nurses, activities. You want me to sell my house?" "I don't want you to. I just think it's practical." He smiled that practiced smile. "And if you sell, I can help manage the money." "You know, finances aren't really your thing." I gripped the spatula so tight my knuckles went white. "Daniel, I raised 3 kids alone, paid off the mortgage, put you through college. I understand money just fine." "Hey, relax. It's just a suggestion. Speaking of money, can you lend me $3,000? There's this investment—" "No!" The word landed like a brick. Daniel blinked. "No. You still owe me $43,250, not a single cent repaid." "Mom, you're holding a grudge." "Not a grudge. Math." I turned off the stove. "And I'm done funding a luxury life you hide from me while crying broke." Silence. Heavy. "What are you talking about?" "I heard you, on the porch, planning my death like a timeline." His face darkened. "You were spying on me. In my own house? You heard it wrong. Don't lie to me. Not now. Not anymore." Tears came hot and shameless. "I deserve honesty after everything." He snatched his keys. "Maybe you really are getting too old to live alone." The door slammed. Sunlight flooded the kitchen. Pancakes burned on the stove. And I finally understood. My son didn't see a mother. He saw an obstacle standing between him and $350,000. 3 days after the kitchen showdown, Gertie McAllister showed up with a warm peach pie, and that look, part worry, part steel, earned over 40 years of friendship. She let herself in like she always had, slid the pie onto the counter as if it were Exhibit A, and lowered her voice. "Saw your Daniel at the bank Tuesday," she said. "Private office. With that girlfriend, Vanessa." I tried to sound casual. "And?" "They were in there over an hour. She came out crying. He came out with that face. You know the face." I did, the closed-a-deal face. My stomach went cold. "Gertie, do you think— I think you should go down there yourself," she said, covering my hand with hers. "And Ellie, have you signed anything lately? Anything he brought?" The answer rose like a memory I wanted to swallow. 6 months earlier, Daniel at my table with a neat stack of papers, a pen, that charming voice. "Just tax stuff, Mom. I'll handle it. No need to drown in legalese." I'd signed because he was my son. That night, the house felt too loud in its silence. The tick of the kitchen clock, the hum of the fridge, the soft complaint of old floorboards. I pulled the boxes from the guest room closet, manila folders, rubber bands, careful labels in my neat library handwriting. Deed, bank statements, tax returns. There it was, tucked in legal thicket I barely understood. Power of attorney, unlimited. Granting Daniel Matthew Hayes full control of my financial affairs in the event of mental incapacity, confusion, dementia, or any condition preventing the grantor from managing her affairs. My breath snagged. I had signed my own financial death warrant. For a long moment, I just stood there, the paper trembling in my hands. Then muscle memory kicked in. The same practical woman who balanced a budget on dimes and soup cans. I took pictures of everything with the smartphone Sarah had bullied me into using. The deed, the statements, my ledger with every broken promise in looping ink. Click, 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 evidence. I called David Morrison, the retired lawyer who drafted Robert's will back when we still argued over paint colors and retirement plans. He answered on the second ring, voice warm with history. "Ellie, I don't practice anymore," he said, "but my niece does. Rebecca, sharp as a knife, hates bullies. I'll have her call you." An hour later, a silver sedan pulled up under the porch light. Rebecca Morrison came in with a leather case, gray suit crisp, blonde hair pulled back, eyes like blue steel that missed nothing. She spread the documents across my dining table, the same one that had held Sunday pot roasts and birthday cakes, and read in a silence so focused I could hear the clock swallowing seconds. "This is bad," she said at last, tapping the power of attorney, "but not irreversible." "Is it fraud?" I asked. "Potentially. At minimum, elder financial exploitation." Her voice was even, unflinching. "In Missouri, that's a Class C felony." Felony. The word landed like a stone in water, ripples moving outward through 30 years of excuses. "I don't want to put my son in prison," I whispered. "I just want my life back." Rebecca met my eyes. "People we love can hurt us the deepest, and when money and power are involved, it doesn't stop on its own. You have to make it stop." She softened a fraction. "If Gertie came to you with this exact story, what would you tell her?" I pictured church basements and casseroles, women with tired hands and polite smiles. I'd tell her to fight with everything she has. "Good," Rebecca said, sliding a form toward me. "Then tonight we revoke this power of attorney. We notify your bank, we change every password. Tomorrow, we secure the house." Her laptop chimed. "There's something else you need to see." She turned the screen. A glossy credit union magazine filled the glow. Daniel's face, my son's face, smiled back at me in professional lighting. "Missouri's Young Entrepreneurs, the Future of Sustainable Business." Daniel Hayes, 34, co-founder of Green Spaces LLC. They called him a genius. I only knew the genius of spending my money. "He told me he was unemployed," I said, the words tearing on the way out. "Broke, needing help with rent." "He lied, Eleanor," Rebecca said quietly. "About everything." Something inside me, bent for 30 years, finally snapped, not into despair, but into alignment. I signed the revocation. Rebecca notarized. We sent the notices. We built a small fortress out of truth. And for the first time since Robert died, I felt the ground under my feet. Solid, unforgiving, mine. The bathroom mirror reflected a woman I barely recognized, gray hair in the same cut for 20 years. Clothes Robert had chosen long ago, modest, appropriate for a lady. Makeup abandoned after he died. I'd been a widow, a mother, but not Eleanor. Rebecca was right. Something had to change. "Gertie," I said on the phone, "where's that new salon your friend's granddaughter opened?" 3 hours later, I walked out of Bloom and Shine with a modern honey blonde cut, not scandalous. Alive. Melissa, the young stylist, had shouted, "You're gonna look amazing." My grandma always said, changing your hair is the first step to changing your life. She was right. Next door, I bought dark jeans, a turquoise blouse, and a soft leather jacket Robert would have hated. The teenage clerk's eyes widened. "Mrs. Hayes, wow, you look different." "Better?" I asked. "Incredible." I took a selfie Sarah had taught me and sent it to my friends. Replies exploded. "Gertie, who is this woman?" "Patricia, Ellie, gorgeous. Susan, tell us everything." I laughed, for the first time in weeks, but the laughter faded when Daniel appeared that evening. "What did you do to your hair?" His tone wasn't curious, it was accusing. "Cut it. You like it?" He stepped inside, eyes scanning the house like a cop searching for evidence. "Mom, we need to talk. This week you revoked the power of attorney, changed your bank passwords, and now this." What's happening is that I woke up. From what? 30 years of believing silent sacrifice was love. I lifted the ledger from the side table. $43,000, Daniel, remember? I wasn't. Does Vanessa know you use your mother as an ATM? His face paled. You don't know anything about my life. Exactly. You take, you leave, and I'm done. You can't do this. I already did. I revoked the power, changed my will, put the house in a trust. If you touch my finances again, I'll go to the police. Silence. Cold. Are you threatening me? No, protecting myself. Then he tried the emotional card. Vanessa's pregnant. 3 months. We were going to tell you. A grandchild. My heart tightened, and I saw it clearly. His next play. Congratulations, I said. I hope you'll be a better father than you've been a son. How can you? Tell the truth. I opened the door. You're welcome here as my son, not as someone who uses me. If you can't do that, don't come. He waited for me to cave. I didn't. This time, when the door closed, it didn't slam. It clicked softly, and I couldn't tell if that was fear or his next move forming. The Sunday Gazette of Woodhaven wasn't the New York Times, but everyone read it. When Rebecca suggested I share my story, my first reaction was pure panic. You want me to expose my son? No, she said calmly. I want you to expose a problem. Elder financial abuse thrives in silence. You could help change that. But everyone will know that you were strong enough to fight, Gertie interrupted. Half the women in our church are living this. They just don't talk. It took me 3 days to write the letter. I rewrote it again and again, searching for the right words. How do you explain that love can become a weapon, that mothers have the right to say no? It was published under the title, When Silence Becomes Complicity, Elder Financial Abuse in Our Community. I didn't name Daniel, but I laid everything out, the transfers, the hidden power of attorney, the goldmine comment. And I ended with this. For 30 years, I believed being a good mother meant sacrificing everything, even my dignity. Today I know teaching respect is the most important lesson we give our children. If they refuse to learn, that's their choice, not our failure. You are not alone, you are not difficult, and you deserve better. A mother who finally found her voice. The phones rang before the papers hit the doorsteps. Sarah called in tears. Mom, I didn't know. Why didn't you tell me? Because I was ashamed, sweetheart. Ashamed of Daniel or of yourself? The question stunned me. Both. Thomas emailed a long apology from Chicago. I assumed Daniel was taking care of you. I should have seen it. I'm coming Friday, and I'm not leaving until this is right. But the most unexpected call came from a blocked number. Mrs. Hayes? It's Vanessa. My pulse quickened. I read your letter. He told me you were confused, that you were making things up. And you believed him? Silence. Until I saw the numbers. I'm an accountant. His stories never added up. Yesterday, I ended it. I'm pregnant, and I don't know what to do. Come for tea tomorrow, I heard myself say. Please. Vanessa arrived at 3, eyes swollen, drowning in a hoodie. 28. Beautiful in the quiet way Daniel liked to control. Thank you for seeing me, she whispered. You're carrying my grandchild. Of course. We sat in the kitchen over chamomile tea and ginger cookies. He's furious, she said. He says you humiliated him, ruined his reputation. And what do you think? I think you were brave, and I was cowardly. No, I said gently. You were deceived. There's a difference. Tears fell. I was so happy when I found out I was pregnant. Now, I don't know if I want to raise a child with someone who could do this to his own mother. I reached across the table and took her hand. Vanessa, you have choices. Always. Daniel didn't come to the house. He came to church. Not Sunday service, the Wednesday community meeting. the one I'd just started attending again after years away. Woodhaven Baptist wasn't big, but that night the fellowship hall was packed. Folding chairs lined up in neat rows, the air smelling of old hymnals and potluck casseroles. He sat in the back, wearing a suit he hated, his expression cold and composed. When our eyes met, he didn't look away. Neither did I. Pastor Mitchell stood at the podium, updating everyone about the roof fund. Then Daniel's hand went up. The entire room stilled. Everyone had read the letter. Everyone was waiting. "Pastor," Daniel said in his calm, controlled voice, "may I say something?" "Of course, Daniel." He stood like a man giving a press conference, calculated. "I love and respect my mother deeply, but lately she's been confused, paranoid, accusing me of theft. I tried to help quietly, but after her letter in the Gazette, I think it's time to be honest." A murmur rippled through the crowd. I could feel Gertie tense beside me. "She claims I stole money. In truth, I was managing her finances legally through power of attorney. She doesn't remember signing it. She's being influenced by people with other agendas." He glanced at Rebecca sitting to my right. Subtle, poisonous. Gertie shot up like a firecracker. "Daniel Marcus Hayes, I've known you since you wore diapers, and I won't sit here while you slander your mother." "Mrs. McAllister," Daniel interrupted smoothly, "I respect your loyalty. But friendship isn't a medical evaluation. That's why I think, for her own good, a cognitive assessment is in order." Whispers. Doubt. He was good. He knew exactly how to plant seeds. But he forgot one thing. I wasn't silent anymore. I rose slowly. Let the silence stretch. The room leaned in. "Daniel is right about one thing," I began. "I have changed, not from confusion, from clarity." I turned to the audience, neighbors who'd watched me raise 3 kids alone, keep the library running, survive. My voice steadied. 3 weeks ago, I overheard my son planning what to do with my property after I died. Not if... When I checked my bank, found $43,000 in unexplained transfers, found a power of attorney I signed without understanding its reach, and realized my supposed confusion was very convenient for someone else. Daniel tried to interrupt. "Mom, I'm not done." I looked toward the doctor sitting halfway back. "Dr. Patterson, you examined me last week. What did you find?" "Excellent cognitive health," he said, standing reluctantly. "Sharp memory, no signs of impairment." Gasps. Eyes turned to Daniel. "Rebecca," I said. She rose like a blade unsheathed. "Multiple transactions were made under power of attorney without informed consent," she said firmly. "This is at least fiduciary mismanagement. Potentially elder financial exploitation, Class C felony." The whispers turned to a low roar. The mask slipped. Daniel's face went pale as he scanned the room, his supporters melting away. "This is ridiculous," he started. "Evidence," Pastor Mitchell said gently. "Daniel, I think it's best if you leave and get help." The back doors opened. Thomas stood there, 8 hours' drive from Chicago. Solid, angry. "Now," he said. Daniel looked around the room one last time. His mother, his brother, his neighbors, all seeing the truth at last. He didn't explode. He deflated. He walked out slowly, carrying the wounded dignity of a man who'd just lost his stage. And in that crowded church hall, surrounded by whispers and hymnals, I realized the silence that had protected him for decades was finally gone. The courier arrived just after breakfast and handed me a thick envelope. No eye contact. Petition for guardianship. Daniel Hayes requests legal control over Eleanor Hayes due to mental incapacity. For a moment, the letters blurred. My hands shook so violently that the pages slipped onto the kitchen floor. Guardianship. My own son wanted to declare me incompetent. Legally. Rebecca arrived within the hour, her heels clicking sharply on the wooden floor. She spread the papers out like a general surveying a battlefield. "Classic escalation," she said, flipping through the petition. "He's trying to take everything through the courts now. It's public, invasive, but winnable." Thomas stood behind me, shoulders squared like he was ready to fight someone. "He's not going to win. We'll crush this." Rebecca didn't even look up. "This isn't about crushing him, Thomas. It's about protecting your mother's autonomy. It's going to get ugly. Everything will come out." Her voice was steady, but the implication landed heavy. My private life, my medical records, my finances, dragged into court because my son saw me as a stepping stone to his escape. Before we could continue, the back door slammed. Vanessa burst in, laptop clutched to her chest. Her face was pale, eyes wide. "You need to see this. Now." She placed the laptop on the table, fingers trembling as she navigated to their joint email account. She had legal access. He'd been careless. Dozens of messages scrolled across the screen. Daniel's voice through text. Charming, calculated, ruthless. "The property will be available within 6 months. My mother's health is deteriorating quickly. Estimated value, $340,000. I'll need $50K up front. Once guardianship goes through, the deed is yours." I couldn't breathe. He'd already sold my house to strangers before even stepping into court. Rebecca leaned closer, eyes narrowing. "Wire fraud. Federal." Thomas muttered something sharp under his breath. I didn't stop him. The rest of that day blurred. Calls were made. Documents scanned. Rebecca's legal pad filled with notes. She explained every step. How we'd challenge the petition, how we'd build the case, how we'd expose the fraud. "He's expecting you to be passive," she said finally. "He's betting on silence. Don't give it to him." That night, I couldn't sleep. The petition sat on the table under a pool of lamplight, like an unwanted guest. I walked through the dark house, touching the walls Robert built, the photos of my children, the porch Daniel had once helped paint. I wasn't the same woman who signed papers without reading them. This time, I would read everything. This time, I would fight back. Pastor Mitchell's office smelled faintly of cedar and old hymnals. We chose it deliberately, neutral ground, quiet, impossible for Daniel to twist into a spectacle. Rebecca prepped me the night before. She sat across from me, her hands folded neatly, voice low and deliberate. "He'll come in late. It's a control move. Stay calm. Don't argue. Facts only. We already have everything we need." Thomas paced like a caged bear. Sarah cried quietly, torn between fury and disbelief. Vanessa sat near the door, pale but resolute. Pastor Mitchell stood behind his desk, hands clasped, silently praying. Right on cue, 20 minutes late, Daniel entered, expensive cologne, crisp shirt, controlled smirk. He scanned the room, momentarily thrown by the lineup waiting for him. "What is this?" he asked. "An intervention," Pastor Mitchell said calmly. "Sit." He laughed under his breath, tried to regain his footing. "You've all lost your minds." I leaned forward. "You promised to sell my house. You took $50,000. His jaw tightened, eyes flicking toward Vanessa. She met his gaze like steel. She didn't speak. She didn't have to. Rebecca laid the printed emails on the table, neatly stacked evidence. Thomas's arms were crossed like pillars. Sarah, trembling, found her voice. She'd defended him for years, but not anymore. When Daniel tried to deflect, Rebecca cut through like a knife. Wire fraud, guardianship fraud, elder exploitation, federal crimes. Daniel. Her voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. He broke, not in a dramatic outburst, but in fragments, gambling debts, threats, a hole he couldn't climb out of, $100,000 owed to dangerous men. My house was his escape hatch. Rebecca slid the agreement toward him. Withdraw the petition, admit the debts, enter treatment, no more access to my estate. Or she'd hand everything to the FBI. The room fell silent. He stared at the papers. His hands trembled. "If I sign, will you forgive me?" he whispered. I met his gaze. Forgiveness doesn't erase consequences. Trust takes years, if ever. The pen scratched across the page. When it was done, he sat back like a deflated balloon. No excuses left, no stage, just a man facing the wreckage of his own making. Rebecca gathered the signed papers with the precision of someone sealing a victory, not out of joy, but necessity. Sarah exhaled like she'd been holding her breath for years. Thomas turned away, jaw tight. Vanessa stared at the floor. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt tired, heavy. But for the first time, the weight I carried alone had been laid on the table for everyone to see. The months that followed felt strange, like living in a new house inside old walls. Thomas stayed for weeks, fixing the roof, repainting rooms, installing a security system. We talked, really talked, for the first time in years, about his divorce, his guilt, my silence. "I should have seen it," he said one night. "No one sees what they don't want to," I replied. Sarah visited next with Emily, my 5-year-old granddaughter. We baked cookies, watched Frozen 17 times, and cried together late at night. "I always thought you loved Danny more," she admitted. "I didn't love him more. I worried more. And I confused worry with love." Vanessa moved into the guest room mid-pregnancy. "Just temporary," she insisted. "Stay as long as you need," I said. The house had been too quiet anyway. We painted the nursery together. She didn't talk much about Daniel. He was in treatment, but sometimes I caught her staring at her phone, waiting for messages that came less and less. "He asked to be there when the baby's born," she said one night. "And what did you say?" "That I'll think about it. Am I terrible for not knowing?" "No, you're being a mother." Meanwhile, the town changed. Or maybe I did. 3 women from church came to me after reading the letter, all with stories like mine, children, grandchildren, even siblings exploiting them financially. We started meeting every Tuesday at the library, where I'd worked for 20 years. Tuesday tea and truth. No shame, just support. Rebecca donated legal hours. Doctor Patterson did free cognitive screenings. One by one, the silences began to break. The Gazette ran a series on elder financial abuse. My face was on the cover. "Someone has to put a face on this," I told them, and I already have. I bought a red 2015 Honda Civic. Gertie nearly fainted. "Eleanor Hayes, in a red car? You told me to live a little." I returned to my book club, took watercolor classes, joined Facebook, reconnected with old friends. My knees still hurt, my eyes still needed readers, but inside, I felt lighter, free. And then, one October Saturday, Daniel appeared at the garden gate, thinner, sober, nervous. "Mom?" "Daniel, can we talk?" We sat on the porch steps, just like when he was a boy. "I ruined everything, didn't I?" "Yes," he blinked, surprised by my honesty. "You're not going to say, 'No, honey.' No, you broke trust, deeply, but you're here. That matters." He admitted to therapy. 2 jobs, repayment plans. It would take years, maybe decades. "Do you hate me?" he finally asked. "No, but this house isn't your safety net anymore. You're out of the will. Maybe someday things change, but don't count on it. Build your own life." For once, he didn't argue. He just nodded. The sun set over Woodhaven as 2 broken people sat quietly, maybe not reconciled, but honest at last. The hospital smelled of antiseptic and warm blankets. Harsh fluorescent lights hummed above us as if time itself held its breath. It was 2:57 a.m. when Vanessa's contractions became steady. By 3:30, the nurses were rushing us down the hall, wheels squeaking against polished linoleum. She squeezed my hand so hard my knuckles cracked. "You're the only one I want here," she whispered between breaths. Those words pierced through decades of silence and betrayal, landing somewhere deep inside me. I had been many things in this house: wife, mother, survivor. But in that moment, I was simply hers. The delivery room was chaos and serenity tangled together. Machines beeped, nurses spoke in calm urgency, and outside, the night pressed its forehead against the glass windows. I stood beside her, whispering small encouragements I hadn't spoken since my children were born. And then, at 3:47 a.m., she came. Gracie Eleanor Morrison, 6 pounds, 4 ounces, crying with the fury of someone determined to be heard. The sound echoed down the hallway like a promise that something new was beginning. When the nurse placed her in Vanessa's arms, everything softened. Vanessa's exhausted face broke into quiet tears. "Do you want to hold her?" a nurse asked. My hands trembled as I nodded. The weight of that tiny body settled against my chest like sunlight breaking through clouds. She had dark hair like Daniel's, soft and thick, and gray-blue eyes like Robert's when she fluttered them open. "Hi, Gracie," I whispered. "I'm Grandma Eleanor. You'll grow up knowing your worth. I promise." The next morning, Daniel appeared, clean-shaven, sober, nervous. Vanessa allowed him a short, supervised visit. Through the nursery glass, he stared at his daughter as if the world had gone silent. When he walked in, his shoulders dropped. He reached for Gracie hesitantly, like she was made of glass. For a moment, their eyes met, hers new to the world, his seeing something fragile and real for the first time in years. "She's so small," he murmured. I told him he had been too. "I know I don't deserve anything," he said to Vanessa, voice raw, "but I'll prove I can be the father she needs." "Promises are easy," she replied softly. "Actions prove." He didn't argue. He didn't make excuses. He just handed Gracie back carefully and left. No redemption arc, just a quiet man walking away from something he still hoped to rebuild. That night, when the ward finally fell silent, I sat by the window holding Gracie. The city lights flickered outside like distant stars. For the first time in years, I allowed myself to imagine a future that wasn't built on fear, but on tiny hands, fragile breaths, and the soft rhythm of a new beginning. The months that followed didn't heal everything, but they built something new, piece by piece. Vanessa moved into the guest room with baby Gracie. The house that had echoed with betrayal now filled with the sounds of late-night feedings, soft lullabies, and the creak of floorboards under tired feet. 2 women separated by half a century, learning to co-mother in quiet companionship. She taught me how to warm bottles just right. I taught her my chicken soup recipe. She tried to explain TikTok to me. I still don't get it. We laughed more than I expected. Daniel visited every Sunday at 3 p.m. sharp. At first, Vanessa insisted on supervision. Slowly, she allowed short, unsupervised moments. He brought formula, paid $400 a month. It wasn't much, but it was consistent. He held Gracie differently now, not like she was proof of something, but like she was the start of something. Sarah and Thomas visited in turns. Emily adored being the big cousin. She read picture books to Gracie with exaggerated voices while we made tea in the kitchen. Sometimes, in those ordinary moments, I felt time folding, past and present merging in the laughter of 2 little girls. Vanessa grew stronger. Sleepless nights didn't defeat her. They shaped her. One afternoon, Gracie laughed for the first time, a bubbling sound that filled the kitchen. We froze, then burst into laughter ourselves. That sound lingered long after the moment passed. Daniel was changing slowly. Therapy. 2 part-time jobs. He showed up every week, sober, quieter, carrying less bravado and more humility. He didn't ask to move back in. He didn't demand forgiveness. He simply kept showing up. And I changed too. I learned to breathe again. To let the house hold new memories without erasing the old. 4 months later, Vanessa found a small apartment nearby. Packing day felt bittersweet. We wrapped Gracie's tiny clothes, folded blankets with care. The house grew quieter as boxes disappeared, one by one. At the doorway, Vanessa hugged me tightly. "You saved my life, Eleanor," she whispered. I shook my head. "No, you saved your own. I just held your hand." As her car disappeared down the street, baby seat in the back, the late afternoon sun hit the porch just right. I stood there alone for a moment, not with grief, but with quiet pride. That evening, I walked through the empty nursery. The faint scent of baby lotion lingered in the air. On the windowsill sat a tiny sock, forgotten, soft as a whisper. I held it in my hand, feeling its warmth, and smiled. Gracie's laughter wasn't gone. It had simply moved forward. And for the first time in decades, I realized, so had I. 6 months after Gracie's birth, Daniel's past finally caught up with him. The federal investigation into the gambling ring concluded. It wasn't just a few shady guys. It was a multi-state operation with dozens of victims, homes lost, lives ruined. One man had taken his own life. Daniel wasn't just a victim. He'd recruited 2 acquaintances, taking a 10% cut of their losses. That part he'd kept hidden. Rebecca sat beside me when the sentence came down. 18 months probation, 500 hours of community service, full restitution, she said. It could have been worse. It could have been more honest, I replied. Thomas was furious. He lied again. Even during treatment. Pastor Mitchell was gentler. People in recovery stumble. It doesn't excuse it, but it explains it. I confronted Daniel one quiet Sunday afternoon. He was changing Gracie's diaper on my porch, the way he always did during his visits. "You told me you were just a victim," I said. "I know. You recruited people, profited from it, and you didn't tell me." He closed his eyes. "Because I was ashamed. I'd already disappointed you. I didn't want to add more. I was a coward." "Yes," I said simply. "And for 6 months, you stayed clean? Does this end now?" No. It ended when I testified. Vanessa knows, Thomas knows, no more secrets. I tested him. "Did you use drugs?" "Cocaine. For 2 years. I've been clean 8 months. Weekly tests." "Did you steal from anyone else?" Long pause. "Vanessa, $3,000 from her emergency fund. Before we broke up, I'm paying it back." "Did you ever actually love me? Or was it always about the money?" The question hung in the air like a blade. He held Gracie against his chest. "I loved you, Mom. I love you." But I was drowning, and I turned everything, even love, into a transaction. That was monstrous. Yes, it was. There was no dramatic music, no Hollywood hug, just raw honesty in the autumn air. I looked at my son, not the boy I raised, not the manipulator he'd become, but a man finally facing his reflection. "You have a long road," I said. "I know. I won't carry your weight anymore." "I don't want you to." We watched Gracie reach for falling leaves, her little hands grasping at something bigger than herself. For the first time, I felt no fear, no illusions, no silence, just truth. And maybe the possibility of something real being rebuilt, not because I sacrificed, but because I finally stood up. For years, so many mothers confuse love with silent sacrifice. But there comes a moment, a sharp, unshakable moment, when the illusion shatters, and what's left is the raw truth. Either you take back control of your story, or someone else writes the ending for you. If you've ever felt used, silenced, or quietly pushed aside, share your story in the comments. Eleanor's journey isn't rare. It's a warning, and your voice might be the one someone else needs to hear.